Good afternoon, Mr. Frederico. My name is Ayu, and I will be your host for today's podcast at the Universitas Ngurah in Bali, in Indonesia. Could you introduce yourself first? Tell me a little bit about your education background and what you have done since today.
Yes, sure. Thanks for having me. So I am Federico Pugioni from Italy. I came from Sardinia, which is the region, it's an island in Sardinia. And in my education, I am an architect by training. So I did an integrated bachelor and master course in University of Sassari in Alghero, graduating with full grade long time ago, I would say, a bit, not so long. And in the education, in the way that it's framed in Italy, it's actually a little bit different because in this integrated course, you have the chance to experience the different scale of the design. So my master final thesis was a thesis about the reconversion of former 19th century factories into the setting in the urban fabric. So I will say that even in this, there was the root of my activity. I collaborated in the private and in the public sector as a designer first with my architectural license, but also then as a kind of let's say, starting as a young intern into the Ministry of Culture or municipalities, always in cultural offices. And in the last 6 years, I decided to expand my research in Southeast Asia. I decided to expand specifically basing myself in Thailand and moving toward the integration of the let's say the built environment and in terms of space in the urban fabric. So I am a full-time lecturer in the Thammasat University, Faculty of Architecture and Planning, and more specifically in the Urban Design and Development program.
Okay, nice to hear that. Can you explain me, why do you change your course from architecture to urban design? In Indonesia, this kind of subject is different. Urban design is in another department from architecture. Most of the Indonesian university do that. So we think about it as two different subjects. So what milestone, what happened, what makes you change your subject from architecture to urban design?
Yeah, I think it's I will say a matter of approach somehow. The discipline of urban designer, somehow the discipline of urban design and the field of the urban designer is somehow seen as a sort of bridge between some of the specificities of the architecture, of the construction, and the complexities that are behind the planning and the urbanism matter. In the view of my program, in the view of my school, but in the view, of course, of many decades of urban design, we can consider ourselves as a kind of position in between many disciplines and all these complexities, trying therefore to allow the development of the spaces into a more, I will say, holistic view, trying to blend different discipline and trying also to blend with a sort of vision of urban space, urban quality. And I will say that probably in my personal path, this was interesting because I think it happened understanding that probably taking care of an architectural manufact, it's perhaps not the end, but it's just the beginning of a longer process. And the longer process is the process of city making, and everyone is a part of it.
Okay. I do believe that architecture is kind of a leaf from a branch of a tree, and then it's kind of you place architecture a lot of, and you can become urban planning. So urban planning is something that in Indonesia is macro level, and architecture is a micro level. But if we join that macro level, it become a macro also. Okay. And then what do you think about Bangkok? What do you think about Bali? You have come to Bali before. And what do you think, comparison between them on your subject, about your discipline? Do you like Bangkok? Do you like Bali? Do you like Italy in urban design?
Well, I think that as the first thing for the first characteristic of every designer should be sort of curiosity and capacity of appreciate diversities. Okay. So I would say yes, I like it. before.
Okay.
Like all the places you mentioned. And why this? Because I think it's a matter of challenge. I think that probably there is, as we said in the previous conversation, there is a bit of a global in the local and local in the global. So I think that perhaps many places in Southeast Asia are suffering of the same issues, are suffering of the same, let's say, dynamics, and they're suffering of the same side effect of the equation that we all believed, especially in the previous times, that urbanization equal progress. In fact, our urban experience, I think, can offer a lot of opportunity for research and probably reflecting on how we can try to work in the contemporary contradictions of the city in order to try to create better cities at regional scale or even advocating for our local communities, I think can be one of the key.
Okay. And what about your challenges on the recent education for urban planning in Bangkok? What have you your challenges is?
Yeah, I think that first of all, there is a big, the first main challenge I will say is to choose your fight, choose which one, which topic you would like to address and investigate. And maybe this is actually one of the, I will say, the beauty of the research, because we are, it's possible to navigate ourselves into lots of different diversities. And I will say that probably for my personal experience, one of my interest of research is about the integration of the space from accessibility, but also from some kind of design point of view. And lastly, I think what is very interesting for me are the dynamic of power that are happening in the city making.
Okay, nice. Several of your research is about designing for disabilities people, and I really want to know, do you can elaborate more about how cities can be more, it can be more used. It can be used by disabilities people, because in here we see a lot of facilities is not capable for disabilities people. So, for instance, there are no ramps around. You cannot find beeping traffic light for people with low vision and something like that. Do Thailand already also faces that kind of challenge, or we are on our own?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, these challenges are the challenges of the contemporary cities in general. Even, let's say, well-developed city in the Western world are facing some sort of difficulties for many reasons. The first reason is like that the subject are the weak and defined by many literature invisible actors. And the second is like because the stakeholders need some sort of institutional collaboration among the different level of design. So probably when we did the research with my team, with Professor Patamon, we realized that one of the, let's say, weak point in some park, in some public green spaces, was actually not the space in itself, not even perhaps the potential for reconversion of a park to adaptation of the park, but was the connectivity to the system, to the urban system, to the planning, the absence of this planning, the current zoning plans, the absence of some sort of approach, inclusive approach in the process of city making. These were probably the biggest finding in the research.
Okay. Your most integrated cities about the best cities for this kind of subject. Can you mention so that we can make that as an example, perhaps?
Yeah, well, I will say that probably the best example in this kind of contemporary city making addressing weak and invisible order, it's offered in the urban and metropolitan scale by the city of Barcelona, which is integrating different sort kind of mobilities, but it's not only the mobility in itself, I will say. I think that perhaps the most important thing is not even the claim of the so-called super areas, but it's as designer, we can say the kind of section of the street, which is allowing connectivity with some existent other spaces, which is allowing the commuting to work with people with less means, which is allowing, for instance, wheelchairs to access, let's say, in a safe way to some of the green public communal spaces, which are, by the way, public. So the publicity of the space in itself and how a space can be inclusive for different people is another topic.
Okay. So it's very interesting to know that we have to learn a lot about it. All of us have to learn a lot about it. And then if you can see that, if you can predict or you can share your experience, what is the biggest challenges that perhaps Bali have to face, have to solve in this coming years for us about urban planning? What do have to solve at the first time? Our priority, what is the first?
I would say that probably one of the first thing which is visible and kind of overwhelming is, in my opinion, the right amount of balance. How much is enough or how much can be too much in between the touristic and anyway the urbanization of the soils, the touristic destination, and the natural and environmental balance, which has non-renewable sort of energies for all the community, for all the nations.
Okay, I do agree that your answer is so philosophical. But I do agree that we do have to limit ourselves, something that is we don't have the capability, then we have to learn about how to set bars for us that is something that it is enough is enough. Okay, and then let's move to artificial intelligence. Do you have any prediction on that kind of subject in our discipline?
Yeah, I think that is the clear first example that is visible is for sure the kind of quantity of tools that are available and the tools which are allowing the execution of tasks. Somehow, probably, I think it's not only my prediction, but it's very hard. It's like how much can we allow the artificial intelligence to take strategic choices? Comprehensive holistic thinking. I think this is a very huge challenge for all the mankind pretty much, since it affects a lot of services of different nature.
Okay. Artificial intelligence is everywhere now. They keep our data from writing to when to have to go to the laundry and something like that. And I'm sure that it will affect how do we design our cities. I do believe that even the slightest phenomenon will change our cities. And then even artificial intelligence is not small, it's very big. And I'm looking forward to see that what it impacts on our cities. And then how about your topic for your PhD? Can you more explain about it? And try to where do you start with it, and then what do you do? What perhaps methodology you want to share with us?
Yeah, sure. I will say that somehow for me there was first of all the need that in this reality which I am working and living and investigating, I wanted to go, let's say, to a deeper level of understanding. So that's why the dissertation was for me the way to allow myself an integration between my teaching research and the educational research and also my personal research. Why? Because the theme, it's about the, let's say, local process and global process as a nexus. And this nexus, this kind of centerpiece where they are happening, are the large-scale urban development and urban mega project. So somehow I was looking for what's happening in Bangkok, and it's like this overwhelming provision of privatized space with mix of function of a certain kind of size, which has been so far the highest provision of space at with a price tag, which is actually the highest price tag registered in a time span, which is actually the shortest time span. So in short, we have in a short amount of time, bigger building, more expensive, more performative, shaping the urban fabrics. So I wanted to investigate how this privatized way of developing the city through the case studies investigation, it's actually affecting in different way the case study, the main context of the case study, which is Bangkok.
You study in Thammasat or yes? Okay, nice. Okay, perhaps the next one is about your advice for youngsters looking to enter the field of urban design and sustainable planning. What do you want them to have kind of skills, and what advice maybe you want to give to them if they want to come to join the field?
Yeah, I will say that probably somehow to kind of fall in love with something in the urban area. It can be maybe a building, or it can be maybe the idea of changing the future, but it's somehow something which brings curiosity. This is the basic thing. But the second thing I will say is probably that to understand that urban planning, urban design, all the urban disciplines, they are not a solo, quick, fast game. It's a long-term, slow team play. And this is probably another thing which I will say to be ready, because the times of the planning are, the time of the city are even slower. And we don't have to give up because of this. Actually, we need to leverage on this and leverage on the possible power that the planning action can have in the generation. Because at the end, we are just working to improve things.
And then what about trends? What do you see in the next decade of urban planning and living, and how we should, as a citizen, prepare for this change? Can you predict what will happen in the next, perhaps 10 years in our cities?
Yeah, I think that actually there is maybe, I will say, to be ready for more climate effect, to be ready for more need for disaster mitigation, and to be ready, let's say, for another practical things we mentioned before, which is the inclusivity and the integration of the space. At the same time, I don't think it's only a practical effort that we have to do as a citizen. We may have to understand more the functioning of the institution, the system of weight and counterweight in the decision-making process, the dynamics of power, which are affecting our lives. And then at the same time, I think that as a citizen, perhaps we may have to somehow even educate ourselves to think that probably the most immediate choices are not maybe the most the best we can do. So and all of this with the background of the technological development that it's happening. So yeah, it's I would say a complex effort that we have to do.
Okay, thank you. And then I think we almost at the end. Do you have anything else to share with our listeners about your work and future of urban design, perhaps?
Well, I will say that we are, even in we as me and my institution now, especially with our latest master's degree that we launched, we are very committed for to push some kind of regional Southeast Asia awareness about the weight of our cities, about the life of our cities, and also about, let's say, the kind of efforts we can do as international cooperation among different stakeholders, among partners, NGO, governmental agency, consultancy, to try to work together in accordance to develop some bases which are actually viable, which are not only staying there on paper, but can be improved and bring to the next level.
Okay, nice to hear that. And then if our listener wants to follow your work or get in touch with you, how do we can get in touch with you?
So yes, there is my personal email, fedepuj at ap.tu.ac.gh. And one thing, it's also to follow the activity of our program, which is not only the Thammasat Design School in the Facebook page, but also the Urban Design and Development International programs. You can find with these names us in Facebook and Instagram. We are pretty active, and we are happy and looking forward for more collaboration.
Okay, thank you to hear that. And then I think it's conclude our podcast for today. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.
Bye.